Okay, excellent. Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Welcome in. Welcome in. This is the Supervisors in Government Community of Practice monthly virtual networking discussion. We're so happy you're here. We'll give everyone a couple minutes to join us. In the meantime, here we do have an icebreaker per usual. Feel free to throw this in the chat as we let folks join us. But what's your favorite fall recipe? I need a little bit of inspiration for recipes in the fall. But if you're in here, we'd love to know. You can throw it in the chat. Here we go. Apple pie. Yes, that's a great one. Whoa, here we go. Chicken tortilla soup, a lot of
Mm,
apple pie, pumpkin cake, lentil soup. I love lentils. I consider lentils a superfood. Oh my gosh, look at this. This is amazing. Sweet
I
potato casserole. Janine, do you have any
I
favorite?
was just gonna say lentil soup's one of mine. Chili and cornbread. We just had
Yes,
that last night. I see that from Heidi. Yeah.
that's a great one. Apple cobbler. Holy smokes, look at this. Cream cheese, pumpkin ravioli. That's a great one too. Um, Anything with the crock pot is great. It fills up your home with the smells. I've actually never done what do they call them? A simmer pot, where you put citrus and cloves and everything, just let it simmer on the stove and your house smells amazing. I
Yeah.
attempt that this year. This is incredible. Ask about food and you'll have lots of, yeah. And
Apple cider donuts. Wait, a shout out to that.
yes,
I'm
yes,
in Vermont and that's like a thing. Apple cider
yes,
donuts. Anything with apples.
yes. Here in Rhode Island, also huge apple cider donuts. All the orchards go crazy with it.
Yeah.
I think we could talk about this for the rest of the day, but we have a very important topic at hand. So keep putting in your favorite recipes because I'm going to look at them later. But welcome in again, everyone here. If this is your first time, we're so happy you joined us for the news or the supervisors in government discussion today. If you're returning, thanks again for being here on a Monday of all days. Thank you so much. My name's Leah Anderson. I'm the digital marketing director here at GovLoop. As a reminder, we do have an associated LinkedIn group. So if you're finding these sessions helpful, please also go to the LinkedIn group so you guys can connect with each other, share issues, share problems, share solutions. We want you all to be connecting there as well. Um, and we have a lot to cover today. We're talking about effective one-on-one meetings. And our featured speaker today is Jeanine Cogan, who's an executive consultant and leadership coach. So thanks so much for being here. We have a lot to cover. So I'm ready to get started if you are.
I'm ready.
Okay, let's go
Good
for it.
to be here. Thanks everyone for joining.
Yes, yes. So we're going to start pretty broadly, just so we all have an even footing on the topic at hand. But should supervisors have one-on-one meetings with their direct reports?
Absolutely. So, according to Gallup, employees who are regularly meeting with their managers, they're 3 times more likely to be engaged
Mhm.
than employees who don't meet regularly. And
Mhm.
what we know is that employee engagement is one of the biggest predictors of a lot of things: productivity, performance, worker satisfaction, how long they stay. So engaged employees, they stay because they matter.
Mhm.
They have a sense of agency that what I contribute is heard, what I contribute makes a difference, someone's listening. So that's actually a fundamental human need.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, I like it. Loud and clear. So yes, we should be having these meetings. Okay, so we'll move into a little bit more too. Why do you think one-on-one meetings have sort of developed this like icky reputation? Like, oh my gosh, I just dread this meeting. Like on both sides too. Sometimes supervisors don't really look forward to them, and direct reports don't really. So what's going on there? Let's unpack that part a little bit.
Okay, well, I love it because I was actually going to, before I shared my view on this, I was going to actually ask the participants what their thoughts were, and a couple people have already weighed in on it. So, everyone, why do you think one-on-one meetings have gotten a bad rap?
Mm-hmm.
They take a lot of time. What's
Yeah. I saw the first comment in here was anxiety issues, which I'm sure we're going to get into that. Um, they can be uncomfortable when they aren't productive.
one-sided communication I'm seeing not utilized correctly?
Hmm. Supervisors coming unprepared. I'm sure
Yes.
we'll cover that today as well. Maybe lack of structure, lack of feedback, privacy issues. Yeah, so there's a lot here.
Yeah. So I agree with a lot of the responses that are up here. So basically, meetings that are have gotten a bad rap, these one-on-ones, because they haven't been intentional
Mhm,
and focused. Intentional and focused on what is important to the employee.
mhm,
So one-on-one meetings with your direct reports should be about them, not you. So again, employees are people. Everyone wants to be seen and recognized.
mhm,
So the supervisor who connects with her employees by realizing that we have rich and expansive lives, we have goals, we have aspirations, we have anxieties, fears, um, and the supervisor who realizes we have all of that will bring out their best, the
mhm,
best in their workers, right? Um, so I have sort of two components or two pieces of information that I think supervisors would be find beneficial in terms of what this then means for you. If you want to bring out the best in your workers, there's two suggestions. And boiling everything down to just two was very hard. I could have picked like 10. But
right.
I just want folks to know I didn't really position myself to you yet, but I used to work at USDA. In fact, my last official day is tomorrow. um, but as a organization development consultant, which means I help teams really thrive and
Mhm,
leaders be the best version of themselves. And so, through my experience, not only in my own business, but working with the federal government just for 3 years, but these are the two pieces that I'm pulling out in terms of what I think is important for you in bringing out the best in your workers. The first is to really acknowledge and make space for your employee in their full self.
mhm,
So you ask about the rest of their life. How did your kids' play go last weekend? What are your interests outside of work? What else is going on in their lives? And really take time for this. This isn't just, fluff, and then you can get to the real stuff. What it is it helps you create trust,
mhm,
rapport. There's a sense of caring.
mhm,
It, you care about your employee in terms of their whole lives. This is something that I would say my boss that I just had, so shout out, did really well. He did
mhm,
this so well. He knew all of our kids. So he knew, what our interests were, what lit us up, and he took time to connect with us on that level.
mhm.
And it really made a huge impact. Um, so I'm still in touch with him to this day. I mean, I call him at least once a week,
Right.
because that was what he really spent time
Mhm,
building that connection. I would say the other thing for you as supervisors is pitch to the strengths of your direct reports.
mhm.
So again, Gallup has done, they've been on the forefront of really doing strengths research. They're the ones that
Right.
have the Strengths Finder, which is a tool that's often utilized to do team building. So many of you on the call may have heard or use the strength finders. And so it's not new to know that strengths matter. Probably everyone knows that. But the nuance here for you as a supervisor is you don't want to just know what your employees' strengths are. You want to actually pitch to those strengths.
Mm-hmm.
So the way this looks is how can you align your direct reports so that they're using their strength daily or really regularly. So if somebody's really awesome at innovating, you don't want them to be doing your data entry, right? Because that's, what you
Right.
want is to create opportunity where they can really showcase their innovation, and not just to showcase it, but because when we are utilizing our strengths, our performance just skyrockets. That's when we perform optimally. And when your employees, each individual one is performing optimally, well, then your whole team is
Mm-hmm.
knocking it out of the park, right? So, and then the one of the best ways to find out what their strengths are is I mean, you don't have to do a lot of detective work. You just ask them. you know, you can say,
Mm-hmm.
if, all right, what are your top three strengths? If you had to narrow it down to three strengths, what are your top three? And you
Mm-hmm.
might have to, have a conversation with them more than once because we don't often think of it that way or have those conversations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the one-on-one meeting is a great time to talk about that directly too, obviously. Let's talk about how you work and what you consider your strengths are, and then, feedback from you as the supervisor if you see things the same way. But it's a great opportunity to get into that. Um, so it's just interesting because the way we asked the question was like, why do you think people are really not looking forward to these meetings? So it's really the opposite of what you've established here. Like when supervisors aren't taking the time to establish that rapport, they're really not having these conversations to set reports up for success in terms of the way they work and things like that. Would you say that maybe it's because some supervisors are approaching it more like a status meeting and not really
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
open conversation?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's, if you're using the meeting just for a status update, I mean, nowadays you could just get that through a message,
Mhm,
sending a message or Teams chat or whatever, right?
mhm,
So the one-on-one meetings, it's all about, I mean, there's a whole book, Priya Parker, she's written a book about, bringing purpose back to any meeting you have.
mhm,
And if you can't identify a meaningful purpose, don't have the meeting. Like that is an indication that you don't even need the meeting. And that's okay. Because a lot of people have meeting fatigue. I was going to say, raise your hand if you have meeting fatigue, right? But if you have meeting fatigue, it probably means there are too many meetings, and you could distinguish
mhm,
which ones are necessary to actually keep on the calendar by honing in and clearly defining the purpose.
mhm,
And you define the purpose on your own and actually with your team, with your direct report. What would be meaningful for you in
mhm,
terms of how we structure the meeting, what we cover, what would support you? And you come up with that purpose. Like in my mind, the purpose is to support the employee's success.
mhm. Yes.
So whatever that would it be professional development? Would it be, working through something they're grappling with in that moment? It could be that could go in lots of different directions.
Mhm. Yeah, I think so the next question, I think we're sort of organically arriving here too, but the next question, I think we're moving a little bit more into structurally how can we make this happen? Because one comment I saw a little ways back was um supervisors and reports don't really love these meetings because sometimes they can feel repetitive, which means again we've lost what the value of the meeting should be if they're feeling super repetitive. So the next question is, how can supervisors balance the need for updates, like actual information sharing part of the meeting, with creating a space where, we are doing this personal relationship building, we're learning more about each other, and like, how can you balance that in just one meeting in terms of the structure, even the frequency that we're meeting? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah. So I would say a supervisor I had recently, what I loved his approach. He he put it on each one of his individual direct reports. He said, what is most supportive for your success? What's the cadence? Do you want to meet every week? You want to meet every 2 weeks? Do you want to meet once a month? Do you want to just meet as needed?
Mhm.
And everyone picked whatever.
Mhm.
For me, that was once a week. I mean, I was also brand new, but still, it's just so helpful. It was so helpful for me to have that weekly cadence. And then you give them the agenda. So one way to think about it is you co-create the meeting together. So you do that around purpose, which I just talked about a few minutes ago.
Mhm.
But then you could also do it, okay, so how do we, what's the structure of our meeting? What's the cadence of it? And it's all, once you have your purpose defined, then it's all in service to the purpose,
Mhm.
right? So you're not just having a meeting every week because it's on your calendar. I mean, that's right. It's got to be connected to some sort of purpose. So
Mhm.
if it's something, if the purpose is I'm supporting you in your success,
Mhm.
then you co-create the agenda together in a way that leads to
Mhm.
that success, right? And then you can check in, say, after you've done 2 or 3 meetings, how is this current structure working? What can we do differently? What do we want to do more of? And
Mhm.
what would we want to do less of or even eliminate?
Mhm.
So you're constantly in this sort of, you keep it fresh by innovating or adapting and changing it based on those 3 questions,
Mhm.
right?
I like that.
Um, Go
Okay.
ahead.
Well, I just want to mention in here, Marissa said my supervisor calls the one-on-one meetings success sessions.
Love that.
Yeah, we do like that. We're rebranding. We're rebranding. And thanks, Marissa. There's some more questions in here. But I think if we're talking about how to structure these one-on-ones, let's say it's 30 minutes, it's really interesting. This is something, there's so many different formats you can try for agendas too. Um, it's something you can Google, or I'm sure we can share a link for, but I'm curious if you have any top of mind that you really like, because something we use internally here is called the pin format, where you're sharing something positive, interesting, and then negative or need to know. So it's just this little kind of structured update that you can take into a one-on-one that we've seen work well, because it's very easy to remember and it's easy to elaborate on those 3 things as you're talking through those. And then you can also do highs and lows of each week, but I'm curious if you have any sort of little tips like that that you might want to share.
I know that things like this are often attractive and people like them. Um, but given that I'm suggesting to co-create it with your employee, I don't have that. I don't,
Yeah.
so if there's kind of a format to suggest, it's co-design purpose with your direct report. And then based on the purpose of the meeting, what's the best design? How do you want to create your agenda? And then create it that way.
Mhm.
And I'm kind of getting to the next question already, but I would say the number one tool that you can use as a supervisor, and it's so obvious, but it's amazing to me how overlooked it can be, is you ask open-ended questions. So maybe if there was any sort of trick I would recommend, I do think that this is the secret sauce.
Right.
Um, Open-ended questions are things like, um, so is there anything that I can do or stop doing that would feel really supportive of your success right now?
Mhm.
So you no yes or no questions. Or if you ask a yes or no question, you have to follow it up with an open-ended question. And then the reason why questions are so much the secret sauce
Mhm.
is because it's, and I'm getting to sort of the behaviors or mindsets that can really transform one-on-ones. This fourth question is shifting into a learner perspective. Your supervisors often, we think of ourselves as, I'm the, I have to know how to do everything. I have to be the one who has it together. But that can kind of, what you want to do instead is really kind of shift into a learner perspective, because that is in alignment with curiosity. And when you're curious um, about your direct report, that's really showing that you care, right?
Mhm.
And the open-ended questions are a way to really understand your
Mhm.
employee optimally. So curiosity just automatically leads to asking open-ended question when you're in that mindset.
Mhm.
Um, I
Yeah.
wanted to say one thing, Leah, almost on the last on question three that I didn't that I didn't say yet.
Sure.
That is, I wanted to just kind of bring into the space that for so many of you, definitely you federal employees, but even at the state and local level, that there's a lot of uncertainty right now, right? With federal agencies, decreasing in numbers in terms of the actual number of employees and a bunch of restructuring and all that. So I think this is like a really critical time for supervisors where you all can really kind of be more of the sort of light in the storm, right?
Mhm.
Um, and it's a tricky time. Like you want to be able to provide transparency, and you also want to kind of maintain productivity, boost morale, and you're doing this all while employees are understandably anxious, right?
Mhm.
You have to do this all within official guidance. So I want to name that this is a really tricky time, and I wanted to offer a few best practices for this time. Okay.
Mhm.
So the first is, anticipate concerns. So, you know, employees might be concerned about their job security right now, or about timelines, or, how are you going to determine who's going to stay and who's going to go, and stuff like that. So just kind of being able to anticipate that and be ready. So with specific language, like, I don't have any new information to share yet, but as soon as I do, I will share it. Like,
Mhm.
the second thing I would suggest in terms of a best practice is normalize and make room for emotions, right?
Mhm.
So as human beings, we actually are feeling an emotion at every moment of every day. We just often don't realize it, or we don't acknowledge it, but we
Mhm.
are, right? So, stress, frustration, and fear, that's all normal. It's normal response to uncertainty. So just kind of be prepared for that and make room for it in your one-on-one meetings.
Mhm.
Listen more than you talk, and that helps to create the space for that.
Mhm.
And I think the third thing I would recommend is, to be empathetic and honest, right? So you acknowledge there's uncertainty, You don't minimize it. You're like, yeah, I know that this is an uncertain and stressful time for all of us.
Mhm.
Be transparent. I
Yeah,
don't know the answer to that, but I will share information when I receive it.
100%. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that point up because it is so top of mind for everyone right now. And I mean, change management is a huge component of being a supervisor or a manager. So again, I think it's a salient point that you brought up now. And I think Ray just kind of touched on this as well. But one of the biggest things we see in change management best practices is employees need to feel like there's open avenues for communication. Even to your point, as you were just saying, even if you don't have new information to share, there has to be an avenue for folks to ask questions, and it should be you as the supervisor, right? So again, just like you were saying, I don't have new information to share, but I hear you. I'm taking your concerns seriously. We're naming emotions here. I think that's bears repeating. So again, I appreciate you bringing that up. It's a tricky part of supervising, but it's incredibly important. And we have some resources on that as well, this whole change management and the role you play in that. So we'll be sure to share that as well. And then one other comment I did want to touch on, I know we're getting up close to time here, was, someone was asking about how to conduct one-on-ones for folks who are neurodivergent and how that um, might need to be considered a little bit differently. And we also have a toolkit on that topic that I'll be sure to share with the whole group here. I think we had really good advice in the chat, but I did want to just address that. We will definitely send out a resource that we have on that as well. So I appreciate folks for bringing that point up too.
And just to build on what you said, Leah, that's again the beauty of this co-designing the agenda, because then in that co-design would be what works well for you.
Mhm.
What's your ideal? What do you suggest? Really, as much as possible, putting the autonomy or giving them the space to own the meeting so it works in a way that brings out the best in them.
Right. And we have a couple of minutes, so I'm gonna try to address a couple of things in here. But I saw Brooke had a question, and I think I saw it earlier as well. What's the best way to rein in one-on-one so they consistently don't go over time? I think someone else put in there too that maybe their employee kind of like doesn't respect the boundary of the time constraint of the meeting, but I have a hunch you might say this is where the agenda or structure for the meeting comes back into play, if you can both honor that. But what's your advice there for just, keeping it contained?
Yeah, being just totally transparent and an ally with your employee by directly addressing it. So
Yeah.
just saying, what do you suggest for keeping our meeting on time? I have a hard stop. We have a hard stop at 9 a.m. So would most support you in keeping this on time, and have them come up with the idea? They
Mhm.
might say, let's just set a timer, or I'll be timekeeper, or let's have one of us give the other a heads up 5 minutes before. And like, your employees have the answers.
Mhm.
Just ask them.
Yeah, keep that open for sure. It seems like we have another comment that maybe the one-on-ones typically get pushed for other things, which I think that's probably fairly common if you have competing priorities or fire drills you're dealing with. But again, if the issue is now they're consistently getting pushed, obviously the message now to your report is going to be that the meeting itself is not a high priority. So what do you suggest there? Just being consistent? What would the message be?
And is it the supervisor that's pushing it, or is it the employee?
Perhaps it goes either way. Let's
Then,
hope it's not the supervisor pushing.
just having the conversation. I'm noticing this meeting keeps getting pushed. Let's consider if we need to change the frequency. Let's revisit the purpose of the meeting, and
Mhm,
really being open to eliminating it or decreasing it, which doesn't, right? Like, if you just view everything as a conversation where there's no right or wrong answers,
mhm,
then the two of you together can decide. whether you should still have it or the how frequently you have it or how long or short the meeting is.
Yeah. Well, speaking of, we're at time ourselves. But I do know there were a lot of good questions in the chat today. So what we're going to do, in our follow-up email, we'll put as many resources as we can that will help address some of the things that were brought up in the chat. Jeanine, I know you're going to share your contact information in the chat as well, but this is where I really encourage folks to use the LinkedIn group at any point to post these questions. I can get back to you. Other folks can get back to you with other resources and answers. But again, there's so much happening in here. I really don't want you to feel that the conversation's done as soon as we get off this Zoom. The LinkedIn group is really there for you all to chat with each other. We do have another meeting, as always, next month at the end of October. Can wear a costume if you feel like it. But we're talking about how to delegate effectively. So again, another super relevant topic for this group. Jeanine, thanks so much for being here today. I know we always cover dense topics and there's always so much more we can do, but this was a really great, very insightful conversation. So thanks for all your insights. Very much appreciate it. Um,
Thank you. Thank you,
and
everyone. I just put my email in there, JanineConnects@gmail.com.
we'll include that in the follow-up email as well. And then to everyone who joined us today, there was almost 300 of you.
Woo!
Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate every moment of your time and we appreciate all the hard work you do every single day in government. So thank you so much. And we'll see you next month.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, everyone. Bye.